Kevin Bowen here. Don't forget to listen to The Fan now on 93.5 or 107.5 FM. And check out our latest coverage online at 1075thefan.com.
Real football, guys tackling each other, starters playing, wins and losses actually counting. We are here 72 hours-ish, maybe 48 by the time you listen to this, maybe 24, away from the Colts' 2019 season getting underway. And this is our Chargers preview podcast for Week 1, the season opener, here on Kevin's Corner. Joey Molinaro, Kevin Bowen back again. And as we alluded to earlier in the week, Labor Day kind of pushed it back to Tuesday and the Brian Hoyer signing. What we'll typically do, I think, with these podcasts during the regular season, Joey, is kind of go a Monday recap, Thursday preview.
Yep.
That's the sort of pattern that I would like to keep with this podcast. The later one in the week is typically shorter. We're going to take a few Twitter questions today, not too many, but definitely hit on Jacoby Brissett. And, I mean, I guess everyone's doing it. We got to give our season predictions, don't we?
I think so. That's part of the mandated. It's legally binding, and when you're a media member, you cover a football team, you have to do that.
You have to, and then you get ripped.
Yep.
That's just part of it. And yeah, man, are you like are you like Bears Packers tonight? You're full in all four quarters, or are you kind of
Oh yeah. I mean, this is my fiance knows, as I'm sure that your wife has found out very quickly, that when football season begins, that means less and less Joey time. Mm-hmm. So we got that in July and some in August.
Is more in your right hand
for sure.
The next few months.
So and especially with the sports books being open in Indiana,
great call.
It's time. It's here, and it's football.
And we will get into a little bit of the legal betting aspect of things. We could have a potential sponsor for this podcast very soon as well, along those lines. But let's start with Jacoby Brissett, Joey.
Okay.
I posted something on 1075thefan.com earlier today about what the Colts will miss the most in the post-Andrew Luck era. Basically, kind of one more eulogy, if you will, of like what Andrew Luck was as a football player. Because I don't know if you felt this way, but I feel like in the last 2 weeks, somehow Andrew Luck has become overrated or not very good or not as good as like people should give him credit for. And Jacoby Brissett has been elevated to like top 10, top 15 quarterback, and the Colts are going to win the AFC South running away with it. And Peter King saying Jacoby Brissett's third of the MVP voting and Rich Eisen's picking them to win the AFC South. And it's just like, wait. Andrew Luck was really freaking good. And I feel like we've kind of lost sight of that. So I had this article planned for a while, but it's interesting how just the perception of how we look at Andrew Luck as a quarterback has changed. Like, he was a really damn good quarterback. I have a feeling we will come in here on some Monday mornings and just think to ourselves this season, man, in the critical moments, could you have had one or two more plays out of your quarterback? But let's focus mainly on Brissett. And I know it's been beaten kind of to a dead horse here on just this was a notion that we knew full well even before Jacoby Brissett became the franchise quarterback. But it should be reiterated again because I don't think we would have said the same thing about maybe Scott Tolzien a few years ago. The guys in that locker room love Jacoby Brissett on both sides of the ball. I don't sense jealousy over like the contract extension he got earlier in the week, which should rub some players the wrong way of like, wait, what the hell has he done to be paid top 20 at his position in the NFL? I think there is a level of respect in that locker room and a bit of rallying, which I think we're seeing from the fan base. Honestly, I think a lot of this is just like, here we go.
It's human nature, right? It's just natural reaction.
Exactly. Could not agree with that more. Like, they don't believe in us. That guy didn't want to be here. It's time to rally. And I do think there's a lot of that inside of that locker room around Jacoby Brissett. I also remember, back earlier this year when Ballard had his exit meetings with players, and he had one with Jacoby Brissett. And more or less, he told Brissett, and again, this is back in January. Andrew Luck was getting ready to play the Pro Bowl like 2 weeks later. He told Brissett, like, hey, dude, I'm probably not going to trade you. Sorry. Like, we have you under contract for another year. I know you probably want to be traded, but unless I get some offer that's just going to blow me away, I think you're too valuable to us, and you mean too much. The backup position, I think, has always meant a lot to Chris Ballard. And I think how Jacoby Brissett is perceived and thought of in that locker room just meant too much to Ballard. And I also remember talking to Marcus Brady, the quarterback's coach, late last season. And that was kind of when I think some of the chatter began of like, hey, Andrew Luck's really healthy. He's taken virtually every meaningful snap this season. He's practiced every day. The Jacoby Brissett trade chatter, I feel like, started to build a little bit. And Brady was telling great stories about how every week in that meeting room, Jacoby would come to him and be like, hey, did you see what Drew Brees did this week? Did you see what Tom Brady did this week? He'd bring these little clips and be like, can we incorporate that at all? Is there something we are missing here? And I think there's just a football junkie mindset to Jacoby Brissett. He is ultra competitive. I mean, you've seen him in practice. He's not afraid to chirp. No. He's not afraid to get into it with a guy like Devin Funchess that we saw earlier in the spring. And I think largely players do respect that. Even Brian Hoyer told a story yesterday about how did you see Hoyer and Jacoby Brissett were roommates at the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, how wild is that?
That's such a small world.
That's awesome.
Of like Tom Brady, his infamous trip that I feel like has turned into like viral every year. It's just like, hey, this is my bachelor party year in and year out.
I can just see that though. Hey, that could be the start of America's Game. Game 2020, They flash back to the Kentucky Derby. We didn't know, blah, blah, blah. And then you got those two guys leading the quarterback room.
All right.
There you go, Colts fans, huh?
Yeah, Joey Molinaro drinking the Kool-Aid big time here on this Thursday morning. It was funny, Hoyer mentioning that to us, about how that was really his first time meeting Jacoby Brissett, and that first he realized he's really funny, and secondly, he saw how relatable he was. And Brian Hoyer, he had a lot of suitors here over the last, 5 or 6 days. Like, there were teams that wanted him. Brian Hoyer had to get up and move his family. There was talk of New England still wanting him back. And I do think Jacoby Brissett's presence played into a bit of why Hoyer wanted to come here. Hoyer actually said that when the Andrew Luck stuff went down now 2 weeks ago Saturday, he texted Jacoby Brissett and was like, hey, man, this is the opportunity that you've been talking about, a.k.a. probably after a few drinks or a few mint juleps at the Derby, which I hear are horrible drinks. I've never been to the Derby.
It probably look good for IG, though. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
Pretty drink, cool drink.
It's always for the gram, man.
Right.
Basically, Jacoby Brissett was like, yeah, I want to be a starter. I don't, for lack of a better phrase, I'm sure he probably looked at Hoyer and was like, I don't want to have your career. It sounds harsh, but it's kind of like, I want my team. I want to run it. I was a third-round pick. Brian Hoyer was an undrafted free agent back in 2009. So I think that there was that from Hoyer. And again, when he texted him, he was like, look, it's your opportunity. Good luck. Sure enough, a week later, Brian Hoyer's waived by the Patriots, and now they're in the same quarterback room. So I think when you talk about everything off the field with Jacoby Brissett, that checks the box. Again, more so than it did for Scott Tolzien. And I'm not sitting here like Tolzien was a bad teammate, but I just don't think his personality resonated across that locker room like Jacoby Brissett's does. And if we kind of move into on-the-field stuff, Joey, I would say the biggest stride that I need to see in Jacoby Brissett, that will be pretty tangible to watch, is his on-field accuracy, is the intermediate underneath accuracy. And this is not just go to your local state fair and throw a football through a tire. This is timing, knowledge of defenses, quick rhythm stuff. Like, all of that plays into it, because when you look at Brissett's numbers, even going back to his NC State days, he's not been one of the more accurate quarterbacks that you would think of for a guy that was a third-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
He just hasn't been. Now, what did we see from Andrew Luck last year in Frank Reich's system? The accuracy and the completion percentage shot up. So now do we see strides in Jacoby Brissett's game where, look, we can largely throw 2017 out the window. Like, that was just such a chaotic, I mean, I've gone over all the, for lack of a better term, idiots that were playing around him, which is probably a harsh comment to make. Maybe just not as talented football
Jags
players.
Yeah, just a guy.
Yeah, guys. Exactly. I think what you do like about what Jacoby Brissett did is, from that 2017 season, was he did protect the football well. And that's going to be paramount. And Frank Reich has alluded to that is going to be vital early in the season. The Colts didn't get out of their own way last year and starting 1-5 from committing turnovers. And Nick Sirianni talked earlier in the week about how the two best things that a quarterback has, decision-making and accuracy. So I think the accuracy aspect of things is still where Jacoby Brissett has got to make those improvements. And I know he's worked a lot with Tom House. We've talked a lot about Tom House working with Andrew Luck. It's not like when Tom House shows up to the Colts complex, it's not just, oh, yeah, I don't talk to the other quarterbacks. I mean, he still is working with Jacoby Brissett of, making sure his fundamentals from the ground up have improved. And the Colts feel like they have improved. And then from a knowledge base, this is where the Colts think maybe his biggest stride has been of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hitch, throw. Not 1, 2, kind of hitch, 3, 4, maybe you're hitching again, and then it's 5, and you're like, oh, yeah, there's my third progression, and I'm going to hitch and throw there. Like, It's more of a fluid progression through it. And so I think that is just kind of a, hey, I know where the coverage is. I'm more confident. That way I become a more accurate quarterback. So I think those things are there. Joey, I would say one of the biggest questions I have now with him is just how do you handle being the guy? You're no longer a placeholder. You're no longer whenever Andrew Luck gets back healthy or whenever Tom Brady comes off the suspension list, I'm back to being way behind, whoever is in front of me at the quarterback position. Like, there is a different bit of you're not coming out. Like, they're not putting Brian Hoyer in the game if you struggle. This is your franchise. You are the answer. And you got to think human nature impacts you some way, somehow, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. You're definitely going to find out a lot about your quarterback when you do throw him into those situations of, like, not only is Jacoby Brissett now the answer, Joey, he's the answer on a team that has expectations that there shouldn't be much of a drop-off. And we can argue that, but the Colts still firmly believe they can win the AFC South. So it's one thing in 2017 when you're like, shit, this season doesn't matter.
Right.
It's like you
can't fall back on that anymore.
Yeah, you aren't in full-on tank mode in 2017, but you were pretty much tanking without admitting that you were tanking.
Knew that it was going to be a different coach, first-year GM. Yeah.
Exactly. You knew it was Chuck Pagano's swan song and all of that. Now it's kind of like, oh, my gosh, it's a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. I'm taking over with 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the game on my own 20, and if we get this ball into the end zone, that could be the difference between winning the division and not. It's just different pressure that Jacoby Brissett has ever faced. And like we said numerous times, around him is so much better than it was in 2017. So much better. The offensive line, there's some deep analytics that have taken a look at it. I think just from 2017 to 2018. So Jacoby Brissett getting sacked 52 times in 2017 to Andrew Luck getting sacked, whatever he was, 13 times, something like that. The fewest in the NFL in 2018. In general, like 13% less pressure, which is a pretty substantial number from one season to the next. Personnel has changed, and then also what we have to ask with Jacoby Brissett is, can you handle all the pre-snap stuff? Can you handle the pass protection stuff that comes with being in a Frank Reich offense? And can you get the Colts out of bad plays? Nick Sirianni said earlier in the week he's going to have the same sort of latitude that Andrew Luck had, but that includes get us out of bad plays. Like Frank Reich, I'm going to call a run play where I don't know if the numbers are going to be right. You've got to identify that at the line of scrimmage. And can Brissett handle all of those things? So, anything else that kind of sticks out with him? And I saw a few more comps we got. Byron Leftwich was a comp.
Okay.
Someone mentioned Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
You would hope probably the ceiling is a little bit higher than Flacco or Leftwich. Obviously, I know Flacco won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
But you don't look at him as a multi-year Pro Bowl quarterback or anything like that. But
I don't know why I felt so good about Dante Culpepper. I thought
it was good. And I mean, you went far back there to grab out Dante.
Yeah, I mean, he put up big numbers.
Yeah.
You know, when he had Moss and Carter and those guys, you know, he could sling it around for a while.
Yeah.
So
I think it's really
Flacco's not bad too, just because he's more of a statue kind of guy, not moving around a lot, huge arm. I could see that.
And that's the thing, like Andrew Luck, and we don't need to get into some like stereotype of like skin color here, but Andrew Luck is a far better athlete than Jacoby Brissett. Like I
ran faster 40, yeah, for sure.
I felt that, and then I went back and looked at like the actual combine numbers, and 40 is like 4.6 to 4.9, basically which is a substantial difference. I mean, 3/10 and a 40 is a lot. I mean, I don't care if you look at vertical jump, broad jump, cone, whatever. Andrew Luck was whatever you want to call it, a far better athlete than Jacoby Brissett.
Yep.
So that's another element that you throw in there as well. And I know some people, I think we didn't get to this Twitter question maybe on Tuesday, and we'll wrap it up with this. Realistic numbers for Jacoby Brissett this season. I looked up his 2017 season, and again, these numbers don't mean a whole lot, but it just gives us some sort of a baseline. 58% passer, 3,100 yards, 13 TDs, 7 picks, and an 81.7 quarterback rating. Andrew Luck last year, 67%, 4,500 yards, 4,600 pretty much, 39 touchdowns, 15 picks, and a 98.7 rating. So I think when you try to compare those two, what you want to see from Jacoby Brissett is, I think you want to see him in like the 63 to 64% passer. I think you want to see him at least around like 3,500 yards, maybe a little bit north of that. And you definitely want to see the touchdown numbers come up. Andrew Luck with 3 times the amount of touchdowns. I think Brissett had a few running touchdowns.
He did.
That he back in that 2017 season. Obviously, you want to see the rating climb a little bit. So I'm excited, man, though, because I just think there's this great unknown about the entire roster to a degree, but especially this quarterback, to where for the first time in 20 years, the Colts are going to enter a season and they're going to evaluate a quarterback and have to make a decision on, is that guy our guy for the next 5 to 10 years or not? And it's just something like I don't think this fan base, especially me, has ever experienced.
No, our generation is totally
is so foreign
to it.
This is so foreign, and it's fascinating. It's scary. It's exciting. Like, whatever adjective you want to throw in it, it's going to be entertaining football to watch and see how Jacoby Brissett develops in a much better situation than he had 2 years ago.
Well, I was watching Good Morning Football this morning, Kevin, and they're live in Chicago getting ready to kick off Bears-Packers on Thursday night, and they were making their season predictions, and none of them had the Colts going down to Miami, but that was just my transition into this. It's time for
Did they pick the AFC South? Were you watching when they picked that division?
Well, they made their playoff predictions yesterday,
okay,
and some of them had the Colts going to the playoffs, but today was the Super Bowl,
gotcha,
and none of them had them representing the AFC down there in Miami. Now let's hear your season prediction for the Colts.
Yeah, and as I referenced yesterday, I posted a poll on Twitter. And do you mind pulling that up, Joey?
Yep, got it right here.
Those updated numbers. So for fans that might have missed the poll, because what we've seen is a 9.5 over/under with Andrew Luck, and then the over/under has dropped to 7.5.
Yes,
without Luck. So go ahead and read that poll and provide the results so far.
From you at KBowen1070, you posted the 2019 Colts record will be 10 or more wins was the first option, 9-7 the second, 8-8 the third, and 7 or fewer wins with the fourth option. The top vote was 9-7 with 41% of the votes coming in. The second one was 10 or more at 32%, then 8-8 at 16%, and then lastly, 7 or fewer with 11%. So people are feeling pretty damn good.
I think you mentioned it earlier, Joey. Betting is now legal in the state of Indiana, sports betting. And the over-under for the Colts is now 7.5. I think there's 89% of people that could go potentially win some money on the Indianapolis Colts.
I'm hammering the over.
Hammering the over.
Maybe hammering's a strong word. I'm definitely pushing the over.
Okay. Where are you at? I guess we haven't really talked about it. Are you 8-8? Are you 9-7?
I'm 9-7.
Okay.
Yep.
Before I give out my record, just a couple of caveats with this season. I mentioned earlier there's a lot of unknown, and some people might be like, well, yeah, there's unknown at quarterback, but you bring back 20 of 22 starters. So what do you mean by that? Mainly on the defensive side of the ball, I mean there's unknown in that how do you play against the elite quarterbacks? That is the unknown for me. Because when we talk about that side of the ball and this team in general taking another step forward, it's now becoming a top 15 defense, top 10 defense against a tougher schedule. Because if you are going to be a team that has the sort of sustained success that Jim Irsay wants, you're going to be playing great teams year in and year out. That's how the NFL works from a scheduling standpoint. And that's where I guess there is the unknown for me, is on that side of the ball, the personnel changes that you've added, can they deliver against the top quarterbacks? The unknown at the receiver position of, I mean, I'm not breaking any news here. I love Paris Campbell. I love Deion Kane. I've mentioned that several times. Can they provide a jolt to that receiver group that's been so lacking? Speaking of the wideout group, you catch T.Y. Hilton on JMV yesterday?
A little bit of it, yeah.
I found it interesting, and I guess it makes sense that Hilton was pretty candid in saying, one more contract, and then I'm hanging up. So he is currently signed through the 2020 season. So 2 years left on his current contract. He turns 30 years old this November. So theoretically, let's say he signs that new contract. I can't imagine it'd be for more than like 3 or 4 years. He's probably going to play close to about 35, and then that's when he would call it quits. Definitely sounds like a guy that wants to continue to play here in Indianapolis, and I'm sure what the quarterback position looks like in 2020 or 2021 will be a big part of that. But man, what a career he's had.
Yep.
Ryan Grigson, best draft pick, best move by far. Nothing even comes close to that for T.Y. Hilton. But again, that's the unknown of like, okay, you've added this wideout group. You've brought in a new offensive line coach. Those are where I get at some of the unknowns of like, there are other things just besides of, holy shit, your franchise quarterback just retired 2 weeks ago, and here comes Jacoby Brissett as your new guy. Like, that's the obvious unknown, but there's a few more things as well. And where I think a lot of fans have given this new sort of, and I guess a lot of the national media, I think the national media, Joey, they more just think the AFC South isn't very good, or isn't like, doesn't have that one team that is going to go out and win 11 games. Whereas I think locally, the fans have kind of gotten this new re-energized feeling, is one, the whole rallying cry, and then two, they look at games last year where Luck didn't throw for 200 yards, and the Colts still won. Dallas, Washington, Buffalo. And I looked a little bit deeper at those games, and obviously the Colts ran the ball well in those games. The Colts defense played outstanding in those games. And while Luck didn't throw for a whole lot, yardage-wise, he was really good on third down. Really good on third down. And it's the efficiency of the quarterback to where yes, your blueprint to win those games was largely via the run and good defense. But there still was a guy under center in number 12 that he's on the football field. And he impacts things in some way, whether that's purely for how an opposing defense game plans for him versus how they game plan for Jacoby Brissett. Or, like I mentioned earlier, we talk about some of the pre-snap stuff. Did Andrew Luck have a great game in getting the Colts out of bad run plays and into good run plays? Did he do a nice job of making sure that they just got into third and manageables all day long? And I guess, can Jacoby Brissett recreate that? Because, yes, I think the blueprints of how the Colts won those games last year, that should give fans just better calming feelings going into this season.
And you kind of mentioned it earlier, Kevin. I feel like in 2017 and leading up to 2018, we heard so much of, Andrew Luck. I mean, when he's back on the field, he's worth 3 or 4 wins alone, just him.
Exactly.
So then it can't be the opposite way to me, even though I only have them winning 1 less game than they did in 2018. It can't be the opposite of all of a sudden, well, like you mentioned, Andrew Luck, we did fine without him. Come on.
So I'm going to go with 8-8. And last year, like you said, Joey, they were 10-6. I'd probably take 3 wins away from that in that you have a harder schedule and no Andrew Luck. So that brought me down to like 7-9. And then I felt like this team has improved in other areas. So then I bump it up to 8-8. And I think I've said this before, but I firmly believe there's a better chance this team goes 10-6 than it goes 6-10.
For sure.
I just don't. I think you're too well built for it to truly bottom out.
Who are your home losses and your road wins?
Okay, my road wins were at Tampa, and let me pull it up. I have it actually in front of me. My home loss, I think, was just Houston, which I know might rub some people the wrong way, but going 8-0 at home, that's. Yeah, so it was home to Houston in week 7. And that was it. I guess I've got them going 7-1 at home and 1-7 on the road, which there's no way it plays out like that.
Right. I have them going 7-1 at home and then obviously 2-6 on the road.
Yeah. A couple things that I think is critical. Swing games, Joey. Swing games against 3 quarterbacks that have all played in a Super Bowl. Home to the Falcons, at your Steelers, home to the Panthers. I think those are just, if you can go 2-1 in those 3 games, I think you're going to play Week 17 with a legit chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I know I've stressed this a lot, the start of the season. There is a slippery slope there where if you lose 4 of your first 5, something like that, that's where I think things could potentially derail. But if you can win 3 of your first 5, then I think there's the potential to have a sort of season where it's very similar from a win-loss record as last year, if not better in the sense of maybe you win the division, maybe get some home field. I just think this division, it's so 50-50 every single game. I don't think that there's that big of a discrepancy between, playing the Titans at home or the Texans on the road. It's just a lot of coin flip action. So I got them going 8-8.
Does it come down to that last week in Jacksonville for you?
It does, yeah. I had them losing last week in Jacksonville. I had beaten the Panthers the week before.
Same.
As a very close game, and then beaten the Jags week 17. My division winner, Joey, would probably still be Houston. I think that they have the most. They are a weird roster when you look at it. It's kind of like, wow, their top 5 or 7 players are really, really good.
Right.
And then there's this huge drop-off. So if they can keep the elite healthy, I think they win 10 games and capture the division. It's crazy, though. The Colts have won the division in 5 seasons.
Oof.
2014.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't thought about that.
Right. I mean, once Luck suffered the injuries, you never won the division. Even 2016 when he played 15 games, or this past season when he played every single game.
What a weird 3-year run that was.
Yeah. It's been 4 seasons since the Colts have won the division.
All right, let's hop into a couple Twitter questions before we finish things up with your keys to the game against the Chargers.
Cool.
We'll start with Scotty. Big if here. Colts win the bowl. I'm guessing he says the Super Bowl. Considering Goff's contract and if Brissett was a big part of the Colts winning the Super Bowl, how much does Jacoby get paid after the season? Does the fan base forget about Luck's early retirement?
Oh, boy. If the Colts win the Super Bowl, Jacoby Brissett's getting a new deal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to look...
He might get a statue, too.
It's going to look really, really nice. Like, there's no debate about that. I mean, hell, Joey, if the Colts win the division, I think Jacoby Brissett gets a new contract. I mean, you rarely see... I guess Dak, is Dak playing in a contract year? I'm pretty sure he's coming up into a contract year. You rarely see quarterbacks play in a contract year. When you restructured Andrew Luck's first deal, you didn't get to that contract year for him. So if Jacoby Brissett and the Colts, go to the playoffs and he plays like a top 15 quarterback in the league, you don't want him in a contract year, lame duck sort of season. You don't want him probably getting paid as the 19th quarterback in the NFL. So I would think that you don't need to go to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. If you can get into the playoffs and have home field, and Jacoby Brissett has played like a playoff quarterback, you're going to pay him a few more commas, a few more zeros than you paid him this past year.
This is from, I don't know if it's a typo or maybe, I don't know, Tiexa IU.
Oh, yeah, that IU Texas.
Oh, yeah, IU fan Texas. Okay, what can we read into the Colts deals for Brissett and Hoyer regarding the odds of Luck returning eventually?
That's a fair question, but I'm going to say nothing. You really are not tied up too long. I know on paper it's 2 years, $30 million, 3 years, $12 million. The Colts have so much cap space. I cannot reiterate that enough. They can take a minuscule cap hit and still move on and feel very good about themselves and absorb Andrew Luck's contract if he indeed came back. So I don't think anything crossed the Colts' mind of like, hey, just in case Andrew Luck comes back, let's not tie up too much money in Jacoby Brissett or Brian Hoyer. I don't think it was that. I think it was, hey, Brian Hoyer, you're 33 years old. We'll give you a 3-year deal because we need to like sway you to come here. But in reality, we can opt out probably after 1 or 2 years. And with Jacoby Brissett, we'll give you an extension because we need to ease your nerves and calm your uncertain future. And we like you, and we believe that you'll be our franchise quarterback. But if you look terrible, we still need to be able to draft a quarterback in 2020 or something along those lines. So it's a fair question, but I don't think those contracts had anything to do with. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you do make the playoffs or have home field or whatever, and Jacoby Brissett really succeeds and you give him that 4 or 5 year deal, that's when I think if Andrew Luck wants to come back, you say, sorry, which sounds crazy. And Jim Irsay probably wouldn't want to do that, but yeah.
Hey, speaking of Jim Irsay, real quick, this isn't a Twitter question, but I thought it was interesting. What's the latest on the team being up for sale? I saw there was an offer. What are we hearing?
Yeah, I don't know if it's team up for sale, but I think it was someone was just like, based off the Indy Star article, was, hey, Jim Irsay, here's $3.2 billion.
If you want it.
Are you selling your team? And I know Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk has kind of ran with it and been like, the Colts are confirming that it was a $3.2 billion offer. So the Colts are saying, if you want the team, you better give at least $3.3 billion. Like he's thinking of it from that term. Joey, I can never see Jim Irsay selling the Colts.
I was going to say, did Luck's retirement hit him too hard, or what's going on?
What would that man do with his? He loves the game of football, and the Colts. He's always been around it. He's not this Stan Kroenke or I don't know all these owners' backgrounds, but the vast majority of them, probably all of them, didn't grow up in the NFL as much as Jim Irsay has grown up. Maybe the Hunts or maybe someone else.
Maras.
Yeah, maybe you have a few, but again, Shad Khan did not grow up picking up jock straps of the St. Louis Cardinals. And yes, that was a former football team.
Yes.
Jim Irsay did that with the Baltimore Colts. So two of his daughters are heavily invested in the day-to-day operations with it. That is a family business. Yeah, $3.2 billion is a whole lot of money. I think the Panthers sold for $2.3 last year. I want to say it was
less than that.
What was it less than that?
Steelers minority owner, yeah.
Dave Tepper. Oh, the Colts used to have a guy named Mike Tepper. He was crazy. I can't see it.
Okay.
Interesting, though.
For sure. It was just odd. It was like, good Lord. I mean, we were shocked by Luck's retirement, then all of a sudden,
Days of Our Lives, Season 7, starting Monday.
Hell? All right, from Nick, can Darius Leonard win the Defensive Player of the Year? What kind of season does he need to have in order to do that?
Yeah, I do think he can win it. Now, for him to win it, what he needs is a couple things. He needs no pass rusher to have more than 18, 19 sacks, which is out of his control, obviously. But I think he can win it because now there's hype around Darius Leonard. Darius Leonard had 19 tackles last year in week 2, and I don't know if anyone around the NFL even saw it. It was kind of like, oh, wow, nice. Let's see if he can do it again. Well, he had an all-pro season, so he's more on the radar, which for all those damn awards, you got to be on the radar. It's like the same thing with the Heisman.
Yep.
Like, you got to have some preseason hype for you to garner the sort of attention that it takes to win the award. Now, Darius Leonard's got to have a pretty similar season like he had last year. And when he had 7 sacks last year, he says now he wants 10 sacks. And he had 4 forced fumbles and 2 picks. He now wants, I think it's like 8 or 9 forced turnovers. And he wants 200 tackles, not 163 like he led the NFL with last year. So I think he can win it, yeah.
From Colts with Grant, do you think that Devin Funchess feels any sort of way about the retirement? Funch's back spasms and the retirement of number 12 occurred very close in proximity to each other. How's that going?
Yeah, that's a good question, Grant. I think Devin Funchess and Jacoby Brissett have grown, certainly from the spring. I don't know if you saw the Colts practice highlight they put out yesterday.
I did.
But it was Jacoby Brissett throwing a tight window ball into the hands of Devin Funchess with Rock Ya-Sin in coverage. Joey, you were at Grand Park a lot. We saw similar coverage from the rookie a lot in Westfield.
Yes.
And the vast majority of the time, that sort of target went incomplete.
There's one that I know we're not really supposed to, but I had an audible whoa that Ya-Sin did.
Right. Definitely. I mean, I had similar gasps of like, damn, 34 can play a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't wear gloves when I golf, so I love a guy that doesn't wear gloves like Rock Ya-Sin. Just kind of looks like he's ready. Football guy.
Do you do the Moises Alou?
Yeah, spit on it, have calluses everywhere, bleed the hands.
Do more than spit on it.
Is he pissing?
Oh, yeah. You don't do that?
I can't say I'm there. Chad Johnson wanted Andrew Luck to pee on the calf.
On the calf?
Yeah, which would have been hard. That would have been difficult, I think, for Andrew Luck from a flexibility standpoint. But Chad Johnson said he would pee on some of his injuries, and it would help out.
Okay, interesting.
But basically, getting back to it, I always tend to get way off.
It's all right, man. We have fun.
Yeah. That completion is the sort of completion you want to see. That's a 50-50 ball that Devin Funchess and Jacoby Brissett are on the same page. And that's the ball placement out of Brissett, Joey, that you want to see. Think back to the Buffalo preseason opener. On a 3rd down, he throws the ball behind Devin Funchess. Cannot make the yards after catch that you need to get that 3rd down. Fast forward a week to the week 2 preseason game, and there's Jacoby Brissett ball placement to a T in that touchdown drive against the Browns. That's what you need to see. When you're talking accuracy, it's not so much just like 59% versus 67%. It's that ball placement has got to be, to steal a word from Jim Irsay, pristine. And you like that. But, Funchess, Ebron's really close with Jacoby Brissett. You can be really close to the guy, and you can also know that you want to get paid. And if things start to derail, how do 2 of your key weapons react? I think it'll be a storyline to watch all year long.
Last one here before we get into your keys to the game coming up for Sunday from Caleb. Bit late for the podcast. I've always been curious. We hear about Andrew Luck working out with QB guru Tom House. What exactly does that entail? And if both Luck and Brissett were working with him this offseason, how is that time split?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how the time is split. I would like to think that you can have both quarterbacks on the field together and do it pretty simultaneously. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's a lot of fundamental stuff from the ground up. I haven't talked to Tom House. Very briefly has been our lone interaction. And boy, that guy kind of talks over your head really quickly with some of his scientific reasons of throwing the ball, baseball or football wise. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to where the ground up fundamentals and kind of mirroring the lower body with the upper body, I think is what a lot of Tom House's focus has been on. And like I said, he's worked with Jacoby Brissett, I'd say pretty closely to how he's worked with Andrew Luck.
All right, man. It's time. We've waited since January. Like you mentioned at the start, week 1 officially here. Guys hitting each other, wins and losses, money on the line, everything that you could want.
Give it to me.
3 keys. What needs to happen for the Colts in week 1? Go.
We got real football, man. Key number 1 is simply for Jacoby Brissett is just be calm. Be the quarterback that people think you can be with based off the sort of temperament that he goes about his life with. I think that is absolutely paramount. That's protect the ball, help your offense limit penalties. I think things tend to get sloppy in openers. And if Jacoby Brissett can just ease himself into the game, which is something I think Andrew Luck at times struggled with, that's going to go a long way to helping the Colts. So I think that is kind of key number 1. Key number 2 is winning the trenches. Offensively, obviously, you think one of your greatest strengths is the offensive line. And if you look at the Chargers defense right now without Derwin James, their strength is the defensive line. One of the few questions Jacoby Brissett got asked this week about the actual Chargers team, he mentioned, look, Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, they can change the outcome of a game in a heartbeat. Those guys are studs. And the Colts need their offensive line to do the heavy lifting for you offensively. But I also think when you flip it over to the defense, with Russell Okung out, that is bigger to me than Derwin James being out. He might not be as big of a household name, but from what I have, gleaned from the Chargers contingent, the drop-off from Russell Okung to their backup left tackle is more significant than the drop-off from Anthony Costanzo to LaRaven Clark.
Yikes.
Yikes is right. And Phillip Rivers, he don't move very much. Now, he can move enough to produce 9 kids, but within that pocket.
Great hips.
Yeah, definitely. Within that pocket, you would call him more of a statue. So, Justin Houston, foaming at the mouth, you would think. And you certainly want to disrupt timing, because Matt Eberflus has mentioned that that's probably the biggest thing. How he judges quarterbacks is what's your timing and what's your accuracy. And those two things go hand in hand. And I think we would all say Phillip Rivers' timing and his accuracy, because he's not the most, he's got an unorthodox way to throw the football. But his timing and accuracy is damn good. Hall of Fame good. And Justin Houston and that D-line, the potential to disrupt that is paramount. And then that is obviously the short-term goal that you have for Sunday afternoon. But the long-term goal is if Justin Houston can go out there and give you 2 sacks in week 1, now in week 2, Tennessee thinks twice about 99 and how they want to block him. And week 3 with the Falcons, they're now thinking a little bit that. If Justin Houston can have the sack production he had to end last season to start this season, that will open up other avenues for this defense. So I think the trenches, for how much you got whipped the last time you were on the field in that area, in Arrowhead Stadium against the Chiefs, if you can win there, you're going to have a legit chance to win this game late in the fourth quarter.
There it is. There's one more?
One more key.
Oh, my bad.
Deliver in the fourth quarter. And I guess I probably say that in reference to a lot of Andrew Luck and his clutch moments that he had. You look at the Chargers last year, they were really good, but they also had some crazy fourth quarter comeback wins. I mean, the primetime one against Kansas City is probably the one a lot of us remember. But they were a team that definitely thrived in late game situations, and Phillip Rivers is going to thrive in that. And I don't see any way the Colts win this game without having to make those moments late. I can't see the Colts climbing to some 2-3 score lead and just playing hold on and keep away for the rest of the game. You're going to have to be clutch in the fourth quarter. And I think the skill group has got to help out their quarterback to where the ball is in your hands, you go make a play. Like, I don't think you can rely on Andrew Luck to T.Y. Hilton over the top 55-yarder. Like, yeah, that's nice. Jacoby has a big arm. It's probably his greatest physical attribute. But I think to win this game, it's, hey, a 3rd and 8, and you're throwing a 4-yard pass, short of the chains, and that guy's got to go make something. Or Marlon Mack, beat a guy, make a defender miss in the backfield, and you go get that. I think those are the 3 keys to the first season opening victory for the Colts potentially since 2013.
Man, you're just having the division title, haven't won one since 2014, haven't had a season opener since 2013.
It's reality, man. I know it's not great, but it's reality. You can't hide from it.
That's true.
Saints, Bears, Colts. Surprising those other teams are in there as well. Those are the 3 teams that have had the longest week 1 drought in the NFL. The Saints haven't won an opener since 2013.
I remember they lost to Tampa Bay last year with Fitzmagic, and I was like, what the hell is going on?
I think didn't Cleveland beat him week 1?
No.
I thought Cleveland beat him.
They could have beat him week 2.
Was that it?
Yes.
Fitzmagic beat him week 1.
Yes.
And then,
Yep.
Browns in the Superdome. Yeah. All right.
Cool. So week 1's here. Getting this podcast out for people to be able to have over the weekend leading up to 4:05 on Sunday. What else is coming from you?
Well, just a couple quick things before we leave. There was a note we'll be on Chad Kelly Watch more in 2 weeks, but I found this note interesting from Howard Balzer on Twitter. There are 14 teams currently in the NFL that have 3 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster, so 14 of 32. There are 17 teams with practice squad quarterbacks. Indianapolis, New England, and Seattle are the only teams right now with 2 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster and none on the practice squad. So those are numbers to watch as Chad Kelly's suspension ends. And we got it. We can't sign off without a week 1 prediction. Joey, I will go with Chargers 24-20. I just think having the quarterback makes a difference. This is a great opportunity for the Colts. I think a 6-point spread is a lot. I think the Colts are going to have a legit chance to win this game because there are some big-time injuries for the Chargers. But I still think it's a lot to ask for the Colts to go out there and truly get a victory.
I was going to say, so it's the under and the Colts cover.
Yeah,
I believe 44.5 is
44.5.
Yeah, so just barely.
Well, I'm going with 44. So, I feel better about the under. I feel better about the Colts covering than I do the over/under.
Agreed.
What do you got?
I don't have a final score because I wasn't prepared enough.
Chargers or Colts?
No, I'm going Chargers, but I do think the Colts will cover 6.5.
Keep it close.
I think it'll, like you mentioned, it'll be a close game in the fourth quarter. But yeah, first week out in LA, first go around with, all after everything that's happened. I think the Chargers will squeak one out, but I do think that it'll be a close game throughout.
He's Joey Molinaro. I'm Kevin Bowen. We'll be back on Monday recapping the Week 1 season opener for the LA Chargers. I cannot reiterate it enough. I'm excited. This season, I think, can go in a lot of ways, and it's a entertaining time to be a Colts fan. I'm not ready to say fun because I think some people might still have some salt in the wounds from Andrew Luck, but it's entertaining because there's a lot of unknown, especially at the most important position on the team. So everyone have a great weekend. And again, 1075thefan.com has all of your Colts content leading into Sunday's season opener in LA. This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.